Hello. Today we'll talk about Parshat Bo, and this is part one. There's also a part two. You can find the link below here in the video description, and it probably also appears on your right side in the YouTube recommendation videos. But anyway, just look out for it. So, Parashot Va'era and Bo both have basically they cover the 10 plagues, and the 10 plagues are they're discussed very commonly by the commentators about trying to understand sort of their structure, what was the purpose, what is the progression there, and today I want to talk about the plague of darkness. We're going to once again look at the Midrash Tanchuma and try to understand what it's trying to say about this plague. And but before that, I want to give sort of a short overview of my personal outlook on my personal perspective on sort of what the meaning is of the 10 plagues and what they're designed to do, because we're going to be placing the Makat Choshech within that framework. So, if we look at the 10 plagues, there's a lot of discussion sort of about their structure, and my personal perspective stems from that of the Ramban, which is that the purpose of the plagues was to, over time, teach Pa'o and the Egyptians who it was that they were facing. So basically, it's divided into three groups of three, and the first three are there to teach Pa'o that there is a God, and this God that he doesn't know about before. The second group of three is there to teach him that this God belongs to Israel. So if you look at the first two of that threesome, you'll see that those are the places where it actually says explicitly that the plague did not strike the Israelis, and then the third set was there to show them that to show the Egyptians that that God is more powerful and sort of a kind of God that the Egyptians had not yet seen, and that the purpose of all this is to lead up to the 10th plague of the killing of the firstborn, which, even though it's the 10th plague, it actually appears before all of them, because back in Shmot, you can find there's a verse there where God tells Moshe what he should be telling Pharaoh, and he tells him, tell Paro, Beni b'choli Israel, my firstborn is Israel, v'im encha meshalech et ami, and if you don't let my people go, hineni horeged mincha b'cholecha, I shall kill your firstborn. So really, the 10th plague is really the first plague, or the gold plague of all the 10 plagues. They're all designed to sort of gradually teach the Egyptians what it is that they're facing, so that then when finally the 10th plague comes along, it means something. Because if it were just, like, in other words, they need to understand what it is that's punishing them, who it is that's punishing them, and not just think that it's some freak accident or it comes out of nowhere. You can't. That's not the way to teach sort of a lesson. So in the context of this thing, we're going to place the Makat Choshech. Now, each one of the plagues really might have some sort of it may just be a punishment. It may just be sort of to inflict pain on the Egyptians, but some of them can also have some sort of a lesson that they hold within them. For example, my personal opinion about the Makat Dam, the first plague, the plague of blood, is that since the blood came out primarily originally from the the Nile, basically, and that is also the place where the Torah says that they used to throw the Jewish babies into when Pharaoh wanted to get rid of them. Then you can think of the red sort of the blood on that lake or on that river to basically be being reflecting, sort of reminding them all the blood that they had spilled into that river. In a similar way, we're going to try and understand what is the meaning of the Makat Choshech. So let's first see what what Chazal have to say about it. So Chazal come along and say the following thing in the Tanchuma. ויאמר השם אל משה, נטה ידך על השמיים ויהי חושך על ארץ מצרים וימש חושך. זה שאמר הכתוב, שלח חושך ויחשיך ולא מרו את דברו. So they're quoting over here a verse from Tehillim. Tehillim, Perek Kufhei, verse Kaf Zayin, where the verses, basically this Tehillim talks about the story of the people of Israel going down to Egypt and then being released from there. And very interestingly, even though all the plagues are brought basically in their correct order, Choshech appears at the beginning. Okay, so even though it's the 9th plague, it appears as the first plague. And this is very, very strange. Chazal were probably trying to understand what it was that made the Torah bring this out over here. And we're not going to answer that question in this context, but this is probably why they were drawn to this verse. So again, what the verse says, Shalach choshech v'yachashich, God sent the darkness and it became dark. V'lo maru devaro. So what does lo maru devaro mean? There really are two options. Maru can come from the word marut, meaning authority, or I'd say authority. So lo maru devaro means they didn't accept his authority. Maru can also come from the root of limrot, meri, which means to disobey, and then lo maru devaro means they didn't disobey what God said. So it can mean either that they, whoever they may be, listened to God, or that they did not listen to God. Mm-hmm. And indeed, the Midrash will bring explanations, two explanations, one following one interpretation, and one following another. Mm-hmm. Now, before I go into the explanations, I first want to point out that Choshech is a very strange plague in and of itself, because it's not only that it appears in this, taken out of its order in this verse in Tehillim. It's also that it's very different than all the other plagues. In the other plagues, there was a clear damage, pain that was inflicted upon the Egyptians, economic pain or physical pain that they suffered. And you can go over one at a time, and you'll see that it's very clear that that's what happens there. Choshech, darkness, is just darkness. It's just dark. It's uncomfortable, but it doesn't actually hurt you. If it has any kind of impact that's negative, it's mainly the psychological stress, right? You block out the sun. But I think that it was sort of, this strange thing about it, in that it doesn't really damage anything. It simply sort of pauses life for a few days, is part of what made Chazal look deeper and try to find additional meanings to Choshech. For example, some suggest that this was the time when God killed off all the bad Jews that weren't about to be released from Egypt. And he killed them off during this plague so that they wouldn't, so that this wouldn't be public, and that the Egyptians wouldn't rejoice in the, in this punishment of the Jews. Other midrashim say that because the Jews could see during this plague, then they used the time to go around and look into all the houses of the Egyptians and find all their hidden treasures. So there's different opinions, but the reason I think that Chazal are looking for sort of ulterior motives for why to do Choshech is because it's different, because it doesn't seem to have on its own any kind of negative impact except for the psychological impact. In that context, we need to understand, I think, the meaning of the following discussion. So Chazal say like this: what does that verse mean? That somebody, either did or did not accept God's authority. One explanation goes, Choshech sheshalach HaKadosh Baruch Hu al Mitzrayim kashe haya. The darkness was hard, either hard to endure or hard to bear, in the sense that it was tangible. According to some of the midrashim, the darkness was tangible. You could actually feel it. People couldn't get up and walk around because it was so thick, almost like a fog, like a very thick fog. So why was it? Why was it so hard? Lama? Because the Egyptians didn't accept God's authority. So that's the first reason. Why was it so hard? Why was it such a difficult plague? Let's say psychologically. Because they didn't accept God's authority. What does that mean? You can ask, because you can say that that's the same thing for all the plagues. They didn't accept God's authority, so they're being punished. So it's not really clear what that means. Then comes the second one. דבר אחר, אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא למלאכים, המצרים ראויים ללקות בחושך, מיד הסכימו כולן כאחת ולא המרו דברו. So the other interpretation is, they did not disobey God. They accepted His authority, and it describes here how God consults with the angels and to discuss if He should bring upon darkness. Again, a very strange sentence, not because it's strange to hear God consulting with the angels, an idea which we know appears in other places too, but because why is this different? What is special about this plague? This plague, which seems to be almost not hurtful to the Egyptians, why is it so special that God has to consult about it? What is so unique about it? And then, in addition to that thing, we hear this little ending over here. Shalach choshech v'yachashich. So the verse says that God sent darkness and it was dark. So that double reference draws their attention, Chazal's attention, and they say, Oto choshech natan bo mamash. The darkness itself, sort of the angel that brought the darkness, added to it sort of an extra heaviness, an extra oomph, okay, an extra sort of weight. Mashal lema adavar domeh. What is this like? The melech shesalach alav avdo, a king whose slave displeased him. Amar le'echad, he told one of his servants, lech vehakeu 50 maglavim, go and strike him down with 50 lashes. Halach ve'ika omea, osif lo mishelo. The servant went, but instead of giving him 50 lashes, he gave him 100 lashes. כך הקדוש ברוך הוא יתברך שמו, שלח חושך על המצרים, נתווסף החושך משלו, וישלח חושך ויחשיך. So the same thing with the God who told the darkness to go, and the angel that brought the darkness also added of its own an additional level of punishment. What does that mean? Again, we can understand the story, but why? Why would it be that this plague, of all the plagues, you'd find this extra punishment? So we get all these, each one of these basically pieces of this midrash. The one that says that God was upset that the Egyptians didn't listen to him. The one that says that the angels joined with God and agreed. And the one that says that the angel even added of their own power to try to sort of make the plague even worse. The problem isn't in each one of these. They're all fine. It's why is Choshech different? In what way is Choshech unique of all the other plagues that it has to have these qualifications? This is what we're going to try and understand in part 2. So look for part 2. If you look down in the description of the video, you'll also find a link to it. And in part 2, we'll try to answer all these questions.